the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Tuesday, September 2nd. Everybody is having a great week. We're gonna jump here into the news. As you know, I'm still in Florence, and in my temporary office here in Florence. This will be the background. I don't know what those sticks are. I think those sticks are to hang coats and stuff, but I don't know what they are. Anyway, there they are. Let's see. So we're going to jump into the news, and I'll just remind you that I'll be here tomorrow, probably an hour later. We'll see, and then the same is true of Thursday and Friday, probably an hour or two later than today's show. All right, a few things before we get into the news itself. Just a couple of tweets that I came across that struck me as worthy of commenting on. All right, so Abby Wilkinson, some woman who likes communism, I guess, writes, tweets, "I'm not about to defend Stalin, but there's a difference between an ideology that's genocidal and one that's based on the idea of equality." And some guy, Greg, writes, "I'm sure Stalin's victims that were lined up before a firing squad or worked to death in the gulag were happy to die knowing that it was all for equality." And I think that misses the point. The point is, and this is a point we make, I think, pretty strongly, Don and I, in Equal is Unfair, the point is that the ideology or the idea of equality of outcome, is genocidal. The idea of equality of outcome must lead inevitably to genocide. There really is no other outcome possible for the idea of equality of outcome. And if you're curious, if you're interested to know why that is, why communism must always lead to genocide, why any ideology that advocates for equality of outcome must always lead to genocide, all I can say is read Equal is Unfair. Equal is Unfair, available on Amazon, available, on a Kindle, just buy it, read it. It's a good book. All right, I had a comment to that. It just happened a couple of minutes ago. It's just so perfect. It also relates to Patrick Ben-David debating the communists. He really had no clue because he doesn't know where they're coming from. And he's non-philosophical, so he doesn't know how to combat the pretend arguments about communism. And when they say, well, it's for the greater good, he doesn't have any way other than to give numbers and GDP and things like that. He has no way to address that issue. He cannot make the claim, and he won't make the claim. No, equality is evil. The idea of equality of outcome is evil. The very idea of communism, the very idea of the common good are bad ideas. Without a moral argument, without a philosophical argument, you can't combat them. They'll say, well, the Soviet Union was a communism, and Cuba's not communism, North Korea's not communism. Communism's never been tried. And you have to say, it doesn't matter. First you have to say, no, all those were communism. And your attempts whatever your attempts are going to be just as genocidal as they were. And you are philosophically corrupt, and communism as an idea is evil, not just its implementation. The very idea is an evil idea. But you have to have a philosophy for that. All right, just breaking news, literally just happened. Donald Trump just announced at a press conference with Hegseth and J.D. Vance and a bunch of people there. He just announced that he is moving the U.S. Space Command. This is a new unit of the U.S. military that Donald Trump, in his first term, created, and is based at the Peterson Space Force Base in Colorado Springs, that he's moving it from Colorado Springs to Redstone Arsenal in Huntsville, Alabama. No reason was given for this other than Trump happened to mention, that he won Alabama by a huge margin, that he is very, very popular in Alabama. He won it by over 40%. And then he kind of quips, he looks back at everybody else, he won it by over 40%. And then he looks at everybody else and says, that had nothing to do with my decision, of course. And everybody goes, yeah, right. It had everything to do with the decision. By the way, this is going to cost tens of millions of dollars. It makes no sense. It's already established in Colorado Springs. There's no reason to move it anywhere. It's there already. But Trump doesn't need any reasons except, hey, the people of Alabama, they support me. I need to give them a prize. I need to give them something cool. A lot of lobbying went into this by the congressmen and senators from Alabama, and by industries that are based in, space industries that are based in Huntsville, Alabama. And of course, they're going to have a lot more lobbying power, given that they're in Trump country, than people in Colorado, a state that voted against Trump, I think in all three elections. So just a quick, that was a quick announcement. I think in the same press conference, I don't have, let me just see if I can update this and give you, the update. In addition to that, there was rumors, there was the expectation that, I don't think it's been confirmed yet, that Trump was also going to announce the changing of the name of the Defense Department to the Department of War. So he's going to change the name of the Defense Department to Department of War. Now, he can't actually do that without action by Congress, but Trump doesn't really believe in all of that congressional stuff and division of powers and things like that. No, I mean, if he wants something done, he just does it. So he's going to announce it anyway and then figure out how to get around Congress after the fact. But he wants a Department of War, not a Department of Defense. You can read into that what you want. I like Department of Defense much more than I like Department of War. The role of government is defense. It's to defend our rights as individuals, as Americans. It's not to go to war. Go to war under some circumstances is necessary to defend the rights. But the fundamental of our military is not to go to war. The fundamental of our military is to defend the nation, defend our rights as individuals. That is the essence. So make of that as you will. We are. You look at the department was called the the War Department since the founding, and it was only changed to the Defense Department in 1947. So it's not like there's no historical traditional basis for the shift back to War Department. I just think the change from War Department to Department of Defense was a good one, and it's a shame to go backwards. But all right, let's see. We are going to do one of those goals like we did yesterday that YouTube really likes. We're going to do a 30-minute goal, or we'll make it a 1 hour goal. And in the 1 hour, we want 30 super chats. All right, so that is going to go live now, and that'd be great. So it could be super chat, it could be a sticker, but we need 30 of them. They can be any dollar amount, any dollar amount, and it was just launched, just started now. Great way to support the show, and great way to just have a little bit of fun and count down the number of stickers, and it's also a good way to tell my support staff at YouTube that I'm actually doing what they suggest I do, that they don't lose patience with me. All right, you remember when was it, in June and July? In July, Donald Trump sent basically nationalized the California National Guard, put it under federal command, which he's allowed to do under certain circumstances, and brought out the Marines and placed them in Los Angeles to back up the work of ICE. Well, in a 52-page ruling, U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer basically said that he believes that this was unconstitutional or illegal, put it that way. He warned that Trump appears to have the intent on, quote, creating a national police force with the president as chief, and that, unquote, and that Congress has never approved this, has never given him that kind of authority. The act that is relevant here is something called the Posse Comitatus Act, the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. This is an act that Congress passed that bars the military from enforcing domestic laws without explicit permission from Congress. And Judge Breyer claims that despite this restriction, the Pentagon, quote, systematically used armed soldiers to perform policing functions, unquote. And he noted, and this is from a article in Politico about this, and he noted that Trump has expressed his desire to use similar tactics in other cities across the country. We've seen it in D.C. Now, D.C. has the authority because of D.C.'s status as not being a state, but he's talked about doing Chicago and more in L.A. and and in New York City. Breyer ruled that Breyer's ruling bars the Pentagon from, quote, ordering, instructing, training, or using the National Guard currently deployed in California, and any military troops, therefore, deployed in California from engaging in arrests, apprehensions, searches, seizures, security patrols, traffic control, crowd control, riot control, evidence collection, interrogation, or acting as informants. He says that the Posse Comitatus Act clearly states that these acts cannot be performed by the military, that these are policing functions. Now he's put his ruling on hold until September 12th in order to allow the Trump administration to appeal, which I'm sure it will appeal, although I think this will go to, what is it, the 8th Circuit, which is a very liberal circuit in the West, and it's likely that they will uphold his. And then here's another case that is going to go to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court will have to decide whether Trump is acting within his authority or not. As that's interesting. Within his authority or not, as executive, as president of the United States. So it's hard to tell how the Supreme Court is ultimately going to rule on all these things. To what extent is it going to uphold the separation of powers. To what extent will it uphold, we talked about this yesterday, the role of Congress and the role of the president as separate. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how the Supreme Court handles all these cases. Again, this is a case that'll probably go to the California, to the federal courts in the, I think it's the 8th district, which is the West Coast, a pretty liberal district. That is, they will probably uphold the judge's ruling, and then the question is, what happens then? What happens then? It appeals to the Supreme Court. What happens to the Supreme Court? God, the Supreme Court's docket is basically going to be Trump versus Trump versus Trump versus Trump versus, and it's going to be fascinating to see how they balance all this out, given so many of the appointees there are Trump appointees, and you know, and the others are pretty consistently conservative. So, yeah, I don't know. But Trump gets knocked down again on another issue. His agenda, I guess, gets knocked down. I don't know why YouTube is not counting all of your super chats towards its goal. Like, since I posted the goal, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's only counting 3. I don't know why. Now 4. It counts Mirko, but it's not counting John, and it's not counting Greg. No idea how this works. Right. I'll have to complain. I will complain to YouTube. Miroslav says the goal does not count stickers, which are ones with the animated GIF. Yeah, so here's the thing, guys. If it doesn't count stickers, I mean, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We still have 5 with questions that are not stickers. And it's only counting 4. So I don't quite get it. All right, so here's the thing. If you want to do a sticker, but just say, hi, Yaron, or just put something down, some verbiage. Don't just do a GIF. Put some verbiage down so it counts it towards the goal. And I will complain because I don't think, it doesn't seem consistent. Stickers are not being counted, so you have to count, or it's just counting slow. No, I don't think it's just counting slow. I think it's more than that. All right, we'll see. Okay, oh yeah, so, you know, I'm on Twitter way too much. And one of the things that I've noticed on Twitter is there's really a campaign out there, because it looks like it's orchestrated, it looks like it's announced, a conspiracy theory, new conspiracy theory. All it has to do with Trump's health. Trump, we are being told, at least on Twitter, is suffering from serious health issues, serious decline, serious cognitive decline. Lots of photos are being distributed of Trump having a vacant look on his face, like Biden had, a gaping mouth, a kind of and other kind of issues that make him look really old and sick and just not there. Also, for a few days, Trump didn't address the press, which is unusual for Trump. He kind of disappeared, and people, again, I wouldn't say panicking, because I think mostly people who are anti-Trump are stating this. People were speculating that Trump's health is on the decline, and they kind of, I think it's mainly the left trying to get back at Trump for what was done to Biden. Although, of course, in Biden, it was quite evident to the whole world what was going on. Well, today he held this press conference. I think it's still going on right now. And I think to the dismay of many of these people, he looked fine. And he sounded fine. I mean, as fine as Trump can sound, right? There's a limit, right? But he sounded fine. But it is kind of interesting how this is the things that people latch onto, not debating his policy agenda, his ideas, but latching on to issues around his health. It's kind of sad to watch. There's betting markets have opened now. Will Trump complete the term? And it was even odds. It was even odds earlier today because so many people are buying into this. It was 3-1 against as of a few days ago, and it's even odds now. So a lot of conspiracies, speculations, just people putting out all kinds of nonsense, but people even willing to put money on it because that's what betting markets are for. There's even one of the trending things on Twitter right now is hashtag Trump is dead. People are freaking out over Trump. They should be, but this is not the way to do it. Not the issue, not the reality. There's no reason to believe Trump has any failing health, any failing cognitive ability beyond his limited cognitive ability that he just has, that he's always had. All right. Let's see. All right, we're already at 8. At 8, to remind you, we've got a goal going for super chats for the next for next 45 minutes, I think, something like that. We're trying to get 30 super chats. It has to be a super chat, not a sticker. So you have to put some verbiage below in the gap. If we can do this 30 over the hour, then I won't mention super chats for 30 minutes. I'll close. I won't mention them at all. Won't bug you about money at all during that period. All right, manufacturing. One of the big goals of Trump, one of the big goals of MAGA, one of the big goals of tariffs was to bring manufacturing back to the United States, to enhance manufacturing in the United States. I mean, a lot of the rhetoric around MAGA, a lot of the rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration is the U.S. economy, its fundamental health should be measured in terms of manufacturing, not in terms of services, which have boomed and done very, very well in the United States over the last few decades, but in terms of manufacturing and the fact that we've lost, they've disappeared. Manufacturing jobs and manufacturing capabilities, supposedly, over the last few decades, really since the late 1970s. So a big goal, a big thrust of this president's policies, including the tariff policies, is to bring manufacturing back and to increase manufacturing in the United States. Well, it's not going well so far. Now, short-term economic numbers, we shouldn't make too much of them, but they are what they are. This is the headline. U.S. manufacturing contracts for the 6th straight month amid tariff drag. Now, put aside amid tariff drag, that's a conclusion. But the reality is that manufacturing is contracting. And it's contracted basically since Trump became president. It's been contracting, and certainly since he started talking up tariffs. So just to read you from the story, I mean, this is just straight up. U.S. manufacturing contracted for a 6th straight month in August as factories dealt with the fallout from Trump administration's import tariffs, with some manufacturers describing the current business environment as much worse than the Great Recession. And the Great Recession was really, really, really bad. So it's really, really hard to tell how the economy is doing behind all this data. We'll know a lot more in the months to come. But it really does seem that at least this part of manufacturing, the stuff that the Institute for Supply Management gets, it does surveys. These estimates come from surveys. That this part of the economy seems to be contracting. Again, it's a small part of the economy. Our economy is not driven by manufacturing. It's primarily driven by services. But it's the thing that Trump has hailed as his mission in with all his policies. So it is important in terms of measuring that. You also saw, and this is government numbers, that, for example, spending on construction of factories has dropped in July. It was down 6.7% from a year ago. And so you're generally seeing a contraction in capital investment in the manufacturing sector. Fewer factories, fewer investment in capital goods, in machinery, and just less manufacturing going on, a contraction in manufacturing. And the sentiment is pretty clear. I mean, the reason people are giving are pretty clear. For example, if you look at makers of transportation equipment, they said they are saying the conditions are worse right now than in 2007, 2009 recession. They said there's absolutely no activity right now, and this is 100% attributable to current tariff policy and the uncertainty it has created. They are describing current situation as stagflation. Some electrical equipment, appliance, and components producers complained that, quote, made in America has become even more difficult due to tariffs on many components. So they are assembling stuff in America, but they still have components that they're importing. But now, the tariffs on those components are making it more difficult for them to actually do the assembling in America. So fewer stuff is going to be made in America. They said that the, quote, the administration wants manufacturing jobs in the U.S., but we are losing higher skilled and higher paying roles. Others reported that because of the lack of, quote, stability in trade and economics, capital expenditure, spending, and hiring are frozen. Manufacturers of computer and electronic products said, quote, tariffs continue to wreak havoc on planning and scheduling activity, adding that, quote, plans to bring production back to the U.S. are impacted by higher material costs, making it more difficult to justify returning manufacturing to the U.S. So it does seem like, unsurprising to anybody who listens to the Yaron Brook show, but it does seem like the tariffs are actually backfiring on one of Trump's major goals, which was this idea of bringing manufacturing back to the United States. It doesn't seem like that is happening, at least not yet. Again, these are short-term results. We'll see what happens in the long term. But the short term is the tariffs are crippling. They are reducing manufacturing, they're creating uncertainty and reducing investment. If you look at a survey that was done, this is the question that was asked of the survey. Has your business been impacted by higher tariffs this year? Has your business been impacted by higher tariffs this year? Well, 3.7% of manufacturers, this is again manufacturers, 3.7% of manufacturers says it was good for them. It's good. We talked about that yesterday. Those are the manufacturers where the tariffs are shielding them from competition. Like yesterday, we talked about the flatware, spoons and knives and forks and stuff, which prices are going to go up for you guys. The ones that are shielded, this is good for them. 7% say they just don't know. 17% are saying, probably no impact at all. Tariffs are not doing anything one way or the other. 72%, 72% say that higher tariffs are having a negative impact on their business. And these are just manufacturers. The one industry, the one economic activity that MAGA and Trump and all the so-called economists who support them claim that is the most important, is benefiting 3.7% of manufacturers, I guess the ones who have really, really, really good men in Washington, and it's hurting 72%. Better get better people lobbying for you. What are you waiting for? Spend more money on lobbying. That's what this is all about. Join the swamp. Join the swamp. So shockingly, tariffs are backfiring, but backfiring is the wrong terminology because it's not like anybody serious didn't know this was going to happen, didn't know that TEFs would not do what some of these ignoramuses claimed that it would. I mean, it's not like you weren't warned by not just me, many people. All right, reminder, we've got a goal set by YouTube. YouTube really likes these goals. It's to get 30 super chats in the hour. I don't know how much time we have left in the hour. Let's see how much time we have left in the hour. Maybe it'll tell me. We have 40 minutes left, 39 minutes and 36 seconds left to reach this goal. We need 30 super chats, not stickers. Has to be a super chat. So you don't have to ask a question, but you can, RDF says, count me in, count me, YouTube. You have to put some verbiage underneath, just any verbiage. It can be any amount, $2, $3.99, I think counts any amount. We're at 12 out of 30, which is not bad because we're not even at the halfway mark, but it would be good to get the 30. That will increase YouTube's confidence in us. It increases engagement. I guess the number of super chats increases engagement. It's not just the size of the super chats. And this would be good for the Yaron Brook Show. So if you want to help support the show financially, if you want to help support the show vis-a-vis YouTube algorithm, please consider doing a super chat. Again, RDF did $2. That's great. I just saw one go by for $50. We'll get to thanking him later. I think it was James Bond. James Bond. So feel free to jump in and participate. Join the fun. So you remember when the big, beautiful bill came by? One of the features of that big, beautiful bill was that it included a bunch of tax cuts that Trump had promised when he was running for president. I mean, you have to give Trump credit for one thing. He does what he promises, or at least he tries to do what he promises. He never repealed Obamacare, did he? But he tries. He says he tries. Anyway, he promised on the campaign trail that he would cut taxes on tips, right? And indeed, the big beautiful bill cuts taxes on tips. It caps that at $25,000. So if you get tips of more than $25,000, the tips that you get above $25,000, you do have to pay taxes on them, but not the tips below $25,000. It can make a big difference to your tax bill if you're in the tip collecting business. Anyway, I guess the Treasury Secretary or the Treasury Department has just made up a list. Mary Aline just said, "Yo, dude." I didn't know Mary Aline could say "yo, dude." Is that a Texas? Where's the "yo, dude" come from? That's pretty cool. All right. Anyway, Trump administration has just released 68 job types. 68 job types that qualify for a tip, for tips. So it includes the obvious, like bartenders and food service servers and bellhops and concierges and taxis and rideshare drivers and parking attendants and hairdressers and manuscript and manicurist people do manicures. I didn't, it didn't look like it included like super chat recipients. I mean, if I wasn't living in Puerto Rico, it would be pretty cool if I could take 25,000 of your super chats, count them as tips, and not have to pay taxes on them. Now, I pay very little taxes on what you do give me because I'm in Puerto Rico, but it is interesting. So it's a normal field, but a lot of people were wondering, is my profession gonna count? Am I included in this tip deal? And so now there's a little bit of clarity, So it turns out that if you're in the entertainment business, it includes you as well. So singers, dancers, other forms of entertainment are so eligible, I guess, for this tip deduction. But there are plenty of eligible professions where workers potentially could find a way to repurpose their regular income as tips. For example, a lot of home service jobs like electrician, plumber, HVAC repairman. Musicians, singers, dancers are eligible for the no tax on tips, which has this category called entertainers and performers, which should include comedians, clowns, magicians, street performers. I don't see YouTube commentators. What the hell? Oh, strippers. I wonder if strippers are included. I think they are. Entertainers or performers. Strippers are dancers. I mean, it's a broad definition of dance. But yeah, I'm sure strippers are going to count themselves as entertainers and performers. I should count myself as an entertainer performer. And therefore, I should be included. This goal thing that YouTube has going does not look like it's counting right. I'm suspicious of its counting abilities. I'm definitely going to log a formal complaint with YouTube about this. Anyway, there's now a lot of specificity. A lot of people are going to recast their income as tips. Part of it is interesting because there were some of these professions. This is typical of Trump, right? Trump administration. Some of these professions, the bill explicitly excludes from counting as tip receivers. It doesn't stop the Trump administration from listing them as being able to do so. To hell with Congress again, to hell with what actually is written with the law. What matters is what we decide and who lobbied and when they lobbied. It looks like they might expand the list, might shrink it. It depends on who lobbies and who gives what to whom and where it happens. This is more swamp. And tips. You don't pay taxes if you get tips. The economic logic, I guess anytime people pay less taxes, it's a good thing. Not when you're running a deficit and somebody has to make it up, so somebody else has to pay more taxes because you're paying less taxes. So, it doesn't work out quite that way. All right. No, it doesn't have to be more than 5. No, I mean, like esoteric economies, I don't think it counted. I don't know. It's acting weird, but I will complain. Officially, will complain. Okay, all right, let's talk about this question. The two next really topics are related to one another. All right, there we go. That is, that counted that one. That's good. Let's see. I want to talk about this general sense of dissatisfaction. The general sense of people that, and we talked about this with Gen Z, but it's really much broader than Gen Z. It's a phenomena in America today. I'll give you some numbers in a minute. People that are just dissatisfied with the state of the economy. They're dissatisfied with their ability to achieve the American dream. Their perception is that people out there can't achieve the American dream, even if they have. And the working hard doesn't get you anywhere anymore. It doesn't count in some serious way. I mean, this is generally, I think, a trend. You see this very much so with Generation Z that thinks that the world is horrible. The world is set up against them. they can't achieve anything, they can't advance, they can't progress, they can't improve, you know, they're crippled by this the state of the world. Nothing is their fault. It's the fault of the world, and the world is just not making it possible for them to achieve the things that they expect to achieve in life. And this also relates to the idea of, well, what is the real state of the economy, particularly with Trump now and Biden before? What are the good things in the economy? What are the bad things in the economy? What is the objective state of the economy? Should we be as dissatisfied and depressed as we are? And then combine that with the fact that the stock market, if you look at the stock market, S&P 500, it's at all-time highs. It's never been as high as it is right now. So the stock market is basically saying, no, the economy is doing great. At least the companies listed in the S&P 500 are doing great. It's up 10% this year, and it's an all-time high. What's the relationship between the stock market and the economy? And how good is the stock market predicting what's coming? Interesting. All right, let's start with this poll. Wall Street Journal ran a poll. It was published today. Yep, today at the Wall Street Journal. I guess yesterday. It was published in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Ran a poll, and the poll finds that a share of people who say they have a good chance of improving their standard of living fell to 25%, which is a record low in surveys dating back to 1987. So all the way back to 1987, 9/11, the recession that followed it, you know, the dot-com bubble burst, the Great Recession, COVID, all of that. Today, only 25% of people believe that they have a chance of improving their standard of living. And that is the least number since they started the survey again back in 1987. So this is a long period of time. More than 3/4 said they lack confidence that life for the next generation will be better than their own. Nearly 70% of people said they believe the American dream, that if you work hard, you will get ahead. I don't think that's the American dream, but anyway, no longer holds true and never did, or never did. The highest level in nearly 15 years of surveys. Republicans in the survey were less pessimistic than Democrats. But that happens whenever your party's in power. If your party's in power, you're more optimistic than if they're out. So during the Biden years, Democrats were more optimistic about the economy and their prospects for the future. When a Republican is president, Republicans are more optimistic about the future and their prospects. So what we're finding here is that, you know, a huge majority of Americans, I mean, 70%, that's a big majority of Americans, have a negative view of their and their children or the people around them prospects in the world. And this reaches across demographic lines. This is true of men and women. This is true of younger adults and older adults. This is true of those with a college degree. This is true of those with incomes over $100,000 and under $100,000. This is a general malaise across the board. And you know, it's sad. It's tragic, really. I mean, one of the things that made America America, one of the things that I think drives the American economic success story, is a fundamental belief in a better future. An optimism, if you want to call it that, about the future. I mean, it's what drives entrepreneurs. It's what drives risk takers. It's what drives investment in the stock market. and investment in building this country, in creating this country, in energizing this country. So it's really sad when that energy, that attitude is not there, where people really think that things are really bad. And, you know, the funny thing, of course, is, well, put it this way, one of the big drivers of economic growth is the belief in economic growth. If people believe that they have no chance to succeed, that the American dream is dead, success in the future is dead, hard work doesn't pay off, they're less likely to be entrepreneurs, they're less likely to work hard, they're less likely to do the things that actually produce economic growth, economic success. I mean, majorities in the survey said that prior generations had an easier time buying a home, starting a business, or being a full-time parent rather than the workforce. Majorities also said they lacked confidence that the next generation could buy a home or save adequately for retirement. And this has a real impact. Now, it's interesting because this attitude is to a large extent divorced from the actual reality of things. The affordability of homes, the level of price inflation, the level of wages, the levels of wealth accumulation. All of that is actually going, it's not going great, it's not going fantastic, but it's doing okay. It's doing okay. So, for example, economists have, what they've done is they've taken kind of economic measures, different economic measures, and they come up with an algorithm that tries to predict consumer sentiment, people's attitude towards the future, how positive or negative they are about the economy. And they did this, so they mapped it out and they've run the numbers. And from 2005, when they started doing this, till 2020, till COVID, you could pretty much tell what consumer sentiment would be given the economic data. So the economic data and sentiment lined up really, really, really well. And then something happened around COVID. Sentiment, right? People's attitude, particularly starting in, I'd say, with Biden, really, in mid-2021, became very negative, very pessimistic, very dark, while what the model says, predicted on the actual economic data, would have suggested much better outcomes. So the gap, so they were completely matched for a long time, and then the gap explodes. I wonder if I can, I'm just, testing something. Give me a second, let me see if I can do this. Yeah, let me show you this. Oops, maybe not. Maybe I can't show you this. Yeah, there we go. Let me show you this. It's a cool graph. I like graphs. I hope you guys like graphs. I'm going to show you a graph. Let's do this. That's not the graph I want to show you. I'm going to show you that graph in a little while. Let's do this. Let's show you that graph. Okay, can you see that graph? I'm going to shrink it a little bit so you can see all the data points. Yeah, there we go. You see that graph? So the gray is what you would predict people's sentiment would be about the economy. And the red graph is what it actually is, what they actually tell people it is. And you can see that the two graphs are completely correlated, completely line up with one another. From 2005 to 2020, even, they don't misalign that much through 2021. beginning of 2021. And then starting in early 2021, actual sentiment about the economy just plummets. And the reality of the economy is actually not that bad. It's not good, it's not great, but it's not that bad. And you'd expect sentiment to be a little bit, or quite a bit, better. You can see how sentiment went down during the financial crisis in 07, 08 over there, right? And right now it's worse than it was back then. But by every measure, economic measure that we have, the economy is doing much, much, much better than in 2008, 2009. Now, maybe people are sensing that we're heading towards some disaster, and maybe we are. Maybe that's what's being captured. But they've been sensing this since 2001 and nothing has happened. Disaster hasn't happened. So, something is going on here. I'll just give you one other graph to consider. Oh, this one I'm going to grow a little bit. There we go. This one is interesting because this one is, This one is, come on, the problem of working on a laptop instead of my usual setup at home with multiple screens. This one says, basically, the top line is, how do you feel about your personal life? In general, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the way things are going in your personal life? And people score very highly. They think everything is going great for them. The blue graph is, in general, are you satisfied or dissatisfied with the things, in the way things are going in the United States at this time? Horrible. Just horrible. My life, great. My neighbors, my kids, my cousins, everybody else, their life sucks. I mean, look at this, 20% think life in the United States is going well, but 80% think their own life is going wonderful. I mean, it's pretty amazing the kind of data you get out of these surveys. Because I think this is how people really think. This, by the way, is a data set that goes back to 1979. Asked the same question, exact same question, of people since 1979. And you can see there's always a difference. They always think their life is going well and the rest of the country is horrible. During the 90s, they had a view, a positive view, of ever increasing, better view of the state of the country, from a very low point in 1990 to a high point in 2000, just before the dot-com bubble burst. But then since then, it's been pretty negative, people's view of the country. Part of the question is, how much of this is a consequence of the fact that we're constantly being told by both sides of the political spectrum, by the loudest voices in our political spectrum, in the case of right now, by the President of the United States, up until he became president, of course, and by his supporters and the other side, and constantly being told that life sucks. Wages are not going up. Inflation is out of control. Constant barrage on a daily basis with no offering of any kind of solutions. Constantly telling us how terrible things are. How it's all going to go to hell. And it's constant. And very little positives. And it's partisan, but it's not just partisan. You definitely get the sense that it's deeper than just partisan. It's, it's part of what people have become to believe. I've given you kind of the graphs and the charts about income. I mean, people believe that life was better in the 1950s because you could make a living on one income and do all these wonderful things, and they ignore everything else. We saw the guy who was trying to convince me that if you price everything in gold, look, we're much poorer today than we were 40 years ago, and it's clearly not true. But he's going to believe it and going to spread the word. The left for years has said we peaked as an economy in the 1970s. Now the right has joined them and agrees with them. We need massive restructuring of our economy and global trade because things are going so badly. It's the whole Trump premise. But things are going so badly. It was the whole basis on which he got elected. He was going to fix all the awful stuff that's happening. Crime in our streets, lower standard of living, lower quality of life, lower wages, higher prices. Everything's going to hell. It's all we hear constantly, a barrage. And while we might think, oh, I'm doing pretty well with my life, but I'm being told that things are awful, then other people must be suffering. And indeed, my future might be at stake. Maybe I'm doing well right now, but the future sucks because that's what everything that everyone is telling me. And it's a constant barrage. It's interesting, though, that while people have this attitude, they also, as investors, are quite happy to bid up stocks and keep buying. And stocks keep going up. Now, again, not to say they aren't real economic problems, because we know they really are economic problems. The big economic problems are the lack of freedom and the lack of economic growth, of real, robust economic growth. Economic growth is too timid. But it's not collapsing. It's not shrinking. And in spite of the tepid economic growth because of technology, life is getting better. Quality of life, standard of living is going up. And productivity is going up, and therefore wages are going up. And they're likely to continue that trend into the future in spite of tariffs and mismanagement of our economy that continues on a grand scale. But people have been kind of, let me have to turn on the air conditioning. Turns off after a while. Yeah, I can't change the temperature. Anyway. So, people's attitudes are what they are, but they're not really attached to reality. And people's ability to analyze reality, particularly when it comes to economics, is very limited. And to a large extent, justifiably so. They just don't have the tools. It's complicated. It's hard. And our intellectuals continue to betray us. Steadily, consistently betray us. Not provide us with actual facts and reality of what is going on. One of the reasons I think you tune into the Yaron Brook Show is that at least here we try to present you with an accurate, balanced, real view of what's going on. It's not tilted towards, my inclination is to say, there is this philosophical inclination, everything's going to hell because the world's not becoming objectivist. And if they're not objectivist, then the world's going to go to hell. And it's all happening now, and it's going to be tomorrow, and the markets will crash, and the world will be incinerated because no objectivism. But the reality is more complex than that. Dagny and Reardon keep going to work, keep producing, keep making stuff, keep building, in spite of all the bastards trying to stop them. And while the state of the economy today is tragic because it could be so much better. And it's hard for me to describe to you how much better it would be because I can't point to an alternative universe where we actually have free markets and where we are 10 times richer than we are right now. But that's the reality. We could be much, 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 much richer than we are right now. It's just a 2 or 3 percentage points of economic growth above what we have today. And the liberty that comes from that and the freedom that comes from that would generate so much increases instead of living quality of life, beauty, and everything good in life, that it really is hard to imagine. Yeah, I've often said you kind of have to be a science fiction writer to be able to actually describe what is possible. And I'm not a science fiction writer, so I don't know. Flying cars is not a big deal. But it's time that we demand our intellectuals bring some objectivity to the table and stop this moral panic or constant panic about the world and about the economy, about what's going to happen, and about doomsday, the imminent doomsday that happens. I mean, right now we're facing an interesting situation. You hear from me and you hear from a lot of economists the fact that the Trump tariffs are really, really bad for the economy. We're seeing negative sentiment in manufacturing. What is it now? 6 months in a row. But I also try to remind you that manufacturing is only 10% of the economy. And that the most productive parts of the economy are actually in services. NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world today, is a service company, not a manufacturing company. It designs chips, designs microchips. Those microchips are made in Taiwan, but they are designed in the United States. The real value added, the real wealth creation is done in the United States. And NVIDIA, as a consequence, has a market cap of over $4 trillion. And therefore, its stock is going up. It's doing phenomenally well. And that is not the sentiment. And that is not impacted, by the way, by tariffs, because they don't have to import anything other than chips. And of course, Trump has given an exclusion for chips. This is, of course, why Apple stock is doing well. Right? Apple is not suffering from tariffs because the stuff that it imports has been excluded from tariffs. Meta doesn't import anything. What does it import? So it has no exposure. So, you know, the reality right now is that there are a lot of mom and pop, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that are really, really, really suffering from tariffs. A lot of small and medium-sized businesses will have to shut their doors. But the S&P 500, for most of it, doesn't have to worry. Many of those companies are service companies. Many of those companies do not have any exposure to tariffs. Many of those companies have vast lobbying facilities, organizations that can handle Trump and can handle the tariffs, mitigate, if not eliminate, their consequence on them. And when you invest in the stock market, you're not investing in the US economy. You're not investing in the small mom and pop stores. You're not investing in small, medium-sized businesses. You're not investing in a company that assembles toys or sells toys in the United States. You're investing in the Magnificent Seven stocks that are taking the S&P 500 to new heights, which are all tech stock, which none of them are manufacturers, and none of them really have exposure to tariffs. You're investing in the 500 biggest companies in the United States for the most part. And they're doing okay. And some of them are doing great. The economy's not doing great. I mean, 2 years ago, the S&P 500 went up 23%. Last year, the S&P 500 went up 24%. This is under, remind you, Biden. The economy didn't go up that much. The economy didn't do that well. Stock market did. The stock market did. So when you look at the stock market, it's not reflecting the economy. And of course, the stock market is predicting that things are going to be good for them. Big business in America will do okay in spite of Trump, or maybe even because of Trump. Oh, we've got a countdown clock now. So we've only got 4 minutes. But the nice thing is, we're only short one super chat to make our goal. Like one super chat to make our goal of 30 super chats in 1 hour. But we've only got 4 minutes to get that one super chat. Let's see if somebody will step in with the super chat. Any amount is counted. So we can clear this goal, and YouTube will give the Yaron Brook show a big, shining, star, whatever. It'll help the algorithm, help everything. There we go. Mary Elaine just did it. She says she wants a flying car. And look, you did it. Your goal is complete. I've got celebratory fireworks going off on my end. I don't know about you guys. I do want to mention, because I was in the middle of a rant when this happened, that Troy did come in with a sticker, and stickers do count, with the sticker for 500 Australian dollars. So thank you, Troy. Really, really, really appreciate it. That is really fantastic. So thank you. And I will thank the rest of you sticker providers in a little bit. We'll get to answering questions in a little bit. And I will not mention super chats other than that. I'm not going to mention them because I promised for half an hour until 4:38 here in Florence, Italy, because I promised I wouldn't if we achieved the goal. So thank you, Troy. Really, really appreciate that. Anyway, don't confuse the stock market with the economy. And remember that, the economy is still doing okay. Tariffs affect a small part of the economy. Trade is a small part of the economy. The parts of the economy that are going to suffer the most are the parts of the economy that we see the least. Again, small, mom and pop, medium-sized businesses. And look, it's not like they're being competed away by big businesses in a fair and open marketplace, like when Walmart comes to a city and a lot of small and medium-sized businesses go out of business. But that's a healthy going out of business. That's what Schumpeter called creative destruction. What we're seeing right now is completely politically motivated, stupid economic policy competing or driving people out of business. The economy is going to slow. We are facing stagnation of some form, maybe max 2% growth, probably closer to 1% growth, I think. Again, economic predictions. Under Trump, and at least early on under Trump, because of these policies. On the other hand, there are things that Trump is doing that are enhancing economic growth, things like significant tax, a continuation of the corporate tax cut, which was very positive, that they continued that. They didn't let the corporate tax bounce back up to 35%, so it's still 21%. And then in addition to that, the big beautiful bill also included, for example, 100% depreciation of certain items like bonus depreciation and expanded interest deductions, which are going to decrease corporate taxes even further, which will help a lot of the S&P 500 companies, but also will generally reduce prices, increase wages. Good for the economy. These are all good for the economy. Cutting corporate taxes is really good for the economy. Cut them to zero. That would be ideal for the economy. So the other tax cuts, like cutting taxes on tips, and cutting taxes on Social Security benefits and other stuff like that, they don't have much impact at all on the economy. But cutting the corporate tax definitely has positive impacts. Some of the deregulation is having positive impacts. So some areas, again, might not be manufacturing, but some areas in the economy are doing well. And the reality is that while the Trump administration taking 10% stake in Intel or having a golden share in U.S. steel is long-term horrible for the U.S. economy, is long-term really, really bad, I think, for the U.S. economy, it's pretty good for Intel in terms of just holders, particularly in the short to medium term. It basically tells them the government is not going to let Intel go bankrupt. They're going to backstop them. They're going to bail them out. It's pretty good for other companies like Intel that pretty much the shareholders can go, oh, okay. So we get a benefit if things go well, and if things go badly, maybe the government will buy 10% of us too and save us. It's basically a put option, a bailout for all big companies in the US. Any big company that the president wants a stake in. And then on top of that, we've got real technological innovation, primarily right now with AI. I mean, the private market valuation of Anthropic, which is a competitor of OpenAI, Anthropic is an AI company, is on the verge of hitting $500 billion. Now, at $500 billion, it will be the most valuable private company in the world. It's an American company. It's a service business. They write software. You can raise tariffs to 1,000%. It'll might affect their customers. It won't affect them in terms of what they do day to day. Again, we talked about NVIDIA. And, you know, tech stocks are up almost 8% for the year, which is pretty good, given that the previous 2 years are up 20+%. You'd think this year would be a slow year. 8% is still pretty good. So, you know, and then stock market's also anticipating short-term interest rates going down. Interest rates generally going down is good for stocks. Now today, the market changed its mind. It decided that short-term interest rates were going down, but long-term interest rates all spiked today. The 30-year bond really almost came to 5%. The 10-year bond went up quite a bit. I think it was at 4.4%. As a consequence of interest rates going up, the dollar went up a little bit. Gold is at an all-time high. It's over 35,000. It's over 3,500. It's 100 times more, 100x. We talked about this the other day when we talked about gold. It's 100x what it was when the U.S. went completely off the gold standard in 1971. 100x. That's pretty good performance. Pretty good performance for gold. So, if you invested in gold. So the stock market today did not do well. I think stocks were down over 1% as a consequence of long-term rates going up. At the end of the day, what stock investors care about are long-term rates, long-term interest rates. And they want long-term interest rates coming down. The lower interest rates are, the higher the value of assets. We've talked about this. Interest rates and the value of assets are inversely related. All right, so you know, it's hard to assess long-term economic it's hard to make long-term economic projections. Because we're oriented towards viewing the world from the perspective of freedom, it always seems like things are going to get worse because things are going to get worse because freedom is shrinking. At least economic freedom is shrinking. But the reality is that because of innovation, because of Silicon Valley, because of pockets of innovation all over the world, and especially in the United States, in spite of the lack of freedom, in spite of the decline in freedom, we do pretty well. And even the decline of freedom is not uniform. We get periods of real deregulation, like we did in the 70s and 80s. And then we get periods of more regulation, like we did in the 2000s. It's not uniform. So we tend to be pessimistic about the future from an economic perspective, but it's also the case that entrepreneurs seem to find ways, in spite of the regulations, in spite of the controls, in spite of the degrowth movement, in spite of all the leftists and the MAGA and the people who harken back to 1220, the reality is that there are people out there willing to take risks, willing to engage in economic activity and really create and build and make stuff. And they're the ones we should thank for the economic success that we have. It was interesting, there were two stories today in the press, one by Matt Iglesias and one by Tyler Cowen, about this issue of the stock market versus the economy and how those two line up. All right, one final little tidbit of a comment about something I saw on Twitter from Charlie Kirk, my old buddy. So Laura Ingram posted this. Don't forget that any trade deal with India will require us to give them more visas. I'd rather not pay them in visas and trade deficits. Let Modi see what terms he can get from Xi instead. Still with them, we don't want any more Indians in America. And Charlie Kirk says, America does not need more visas for people from India. Perhaps no form of legal immigration has so displaced American workers than those from India. Enough already. We're full. Let's finally put our own people first. Yep. So it used to be that people would complain about immigrants, that they were lazy and they were no good, and you know they were mooching, and the reason to stop immigration is because they were using up our welfare programs. They were all leeching off of Americans. They were using welfare, and they were sending kids to government schools, and they were getting free health care, and they were moochers. So we hate immigrants because they're moochers. But that's not MAGA's claim anymore, at least according to Charlie Kirk, and he's a good representative. No, now the claim is, we don't want these damn immigrants. They work too hard. They're too smart. They make too much money. We can't compete. Keep them out. We need to preserve our jobs. Oh my God, Americans are going to lose jobs to Indians because they're hardworking and they're smart. Pathetic is the right way to think about this. Somebody pointed out, Steve Davis actually pointed out, that this is also the line that was taken against the Chinese immigrants in the late 19th century with the Chinese Exclusion Act. The reason they were excluded is because they were too good at their job. They were too hardworking. They were getting stuff done. They were building railroads. And others couldn't compete. It really is disgusting and racist and despicable. Charlie Kirk later says, America for Americans. What a crazy thought. Yeah, let's have more Americans. And some of those Americans could be born in India. And by the way, which American workers were displaced by Indian workers? I want to know who was displaced. You mean the lazy ones? The not so productive ones? Indians in America. And since when are we a country that rewards the unproductive, the lazy? I thought we embraced competition. We embraced ability. We embraced hard work. We embraced the American dream. And therefore, embrace Indians who come here to actually work. Yep. So Charlie Kirk embracing kind of the racist agenda, embracing the nationalist agenda, embracing, it's better to have American moochers than productive Indians. America's not an idea, it's a people and a place. And those people are not Indian, so therefore no Indian should be allowed in. Don't bring Indians in. And let's not have a trade deal with India that allows for visas, like with China. We talked about this yesterday, that Trump is allowing 600,000 Chinese students to come to America, and MAGA is not happy. Not happy. All right. All right, let's see. Where are we? Yeah, I think we're done. That is the news for September 2nd. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate that. We will now shift our attention to the Super Chat. We got a bunch of questions. So, and I'm not supposed to mention Super Chat, but the questions, to your questions. Shift our attention to your questions. I'll just say you can still ask questions, just to remind you. You can still ask questions as we answer these questions. All right, let us all right, I'm going to ignore your chat because let me remind you that you can support the show on patreon.com. Just put your Yaron Brook show in and become a monthly supporter. Incredibly valued. I incredibly value those monthly supporters. They give predictability to income stream in terms of supporting the show, which is made possible from support from you guys. I also want to remind you of our 3 sponsors. Hendershot Wealth, which is Hendershot Wealth has a product that can save you an incredible amount of money on capital gains taxes. So if you have appreciated stock or you're about to sell a business, contact them. Hendershot with 2 T's, Hendershot, 2 T's, wealth.com, one word, hendershotwealth.com/YBS, Yaron Brook Show. And check out the interview I did with Robert Hendershot on my on a playlist on my YouTube channel. It is a fun interview. I think you'll learn a lot, even if the product itself is not relevant for you. I think you'll enjoy the interview anyway. What else did I want to? Yes, the Ayn Rand Institute. Ayn Rand Institute is now taking registrations for classes that start in October. For Ayn Rand Live. These are the old ARU courses, but now you don't have to apply. You just can register for them. You can pay and register. But if you're a YBS listener, you get a discount, 10%. Here's your discount code, 25YBS10, 25YBS10. These are fantastic courses taught by some of the most knowledgeable people in objectivism, and so the best teachers on the planet. You will learn a huge amount. You will gain an immense amount of depth to your knowledge of objectivism. And you can take them at your own pace. You can take live classes. You can take them by video later, live in terms of video live, or you can take them whenever you want. You can do homework and get it graded or not. You will have somebody assigned to you who you can use as a coach if you want to or not. So lots of optionality involved in this. All you have to do is go to aynrand.org/start here, aynrand.org/start here, and click on the link there and sign up And don't forget to use the code 25 YBS10. 25 YBS10. And finally, Alex Epstein, the world expert on all things energy related. He had a good tweet today responding to Noah Smith's criticism of the Secretary of the Energy, and Alex just set him straight. And you will get a lot of that and a lot of insight into what is going on the energy front, and what is going on in the United States, what is going on globally, what is going on in the Trump administration, all with regard to energy, climate change, environmental regulation. If you subscribe, cost-free, by the way, to alexepstein.substack.com, do it. It's really, really important to, grow and elevate Alex Epstein's voice on these issues. One of the most important voices in our culture. All right, let's jump in. James Bond says, Happy Atlas Shrugged Day. So today is September 2nd. September 2nd is Atlas Shrugged Day. It's September 2nd is mentioned in Atlas Shrugged, right in, the first page or something. And yes, Atlas Shrugged Day is here. It's on September 2nd. September 2nd is also the day in 2028 that the Ayn Rand Institute will be opening its new headquarters, museum, experience center, Ayn Rand Center in Austin, Texas. That'll be on September 2nd, 2028. 3 years from today, it's going to happen. All right, thank you, James Bond. That was $50. Well, €50, even better than $50. Really, really appreciate that. All right, Jennifer. It's true crime has been worsening. It's true crime has been worsening in Alaska over the last 20 years. Unfortunately, Alaskan natives are increasingly told they can't succeed and need welfare. It's sad, considering all the natural resources Alaska contains. Yeah, and if you think about the natural resources, the way they're being used is by providing welfare, right? So there is a fund in Alaska that basically gets royalties from all the natural resources, and that fund, very similar to the way it's done in Norway, no, actually different than the way it's done in Norway, this fund is then distributed to the residents of Alaska, provide them in a sense with a universal basic income or with a welfare check. Welfare is corrupting. Giving people money with no strings attached is corrupting. They did nothing to gain those natural resources. Literally nothing. They weren't even born on the land where the natural resources are. So they have no property rights over that land. So yes, I mean, Alaska should be a wealthy place. It should be a safe place. And yet, just like with the Native Americans, with the Indians, the way the government has treated them has caused an increase in alcoholism and drug use and in crime. It's just a travesty, the way we still, not just the way we did, but the way we still treat American Indians as wards of the state instead of independent individuals, able, capable, competent to take care of themselves. And the same should be true in Alaska. All right, Ryan, we who've been, this is a quote. Yes. We who've been called materialists by the killers of the human spirit, we're the only ones who know how little value or meaning there is in material object as such, because we're the ones who create their value and meaning. So this is some Gold speech, I think. And this is the producers. Production is about thinking. It's about the human mind. It's not about the material stuff. It's not about material objects. It's about the ability to create those material objects. It's what the labor theory of value doesn't get. It's what Marxism doesn't get. It's what socialism and communism don't get. It's what those kids debating Patrick Ben David don't get. It's the kind of argument Patrick Ben-David can't make, but this is exactly the argument that needs to be made. All their material well-being requires a mind. That mind requires freedom. You'll not get that material well-being under their utopian dream. It's just a fantasy. Material wealth does not grow on trees, does not fall from heaven like manna. AI will not produce it. It requires free human beings to produce the things that we require, we need in order to live as human beings. Lyman, does anti-trade sentiment come from tribalism and fear of the other? On one hand, it's reasonable to decline trade that might prolong a culture as antithetical to your own, Russia, Saudi Arabia, but can it still be win-win? Yeah, I mean, trade is win-win. Even trade with Saudi Arabia and Russia is win-win. That's the problem. Do you want Russia to win? And you might not. I mean, it depends how you define Russia and whether you view them as a real threat and an enemy. If they are an enemy of the United States, defined that way, then you don't want them to win, and therefore trade should be banned. But yes, anti-trade comes from a number of different things. It comes from tribalism and fear of the other. It also comes from a perceptual level mentality that views the world as zero-sum. Now, note that the perceptual level mentality, the zero-sum mentality, is also a tribal mentality. It's a mentality that cannot conceptualize, cannot think deeply about the value of the individual. It cannot reason. It cannot use reason in order to survive, and therefore latches on to the group that will provide it with protection and provide it with the answers. So the fundamental cause of anti-trade is the perceptual mentality, the perceptual mentality that views the world as zero-sum, that can't understand the win-win nature of trade. But that is also the mentality that leads to tribalism. So the proximate cause of the anti-trade, or the immediate cause of the anti-trade sentiment, is that tribalism says, mine. And only people like me, only people who look like me. I don't want the other. I hate the other. I despise the other. So absolutely, that comes from tribalism. Levin also says, can Russia to win by having better ideas rub off on them through trade? Sure, and that's why, not really, because we're not really interested in having ideas rub off on other countries. I mean, it would be nice, but that's not the purpose of trade. The point is this: if somebody's an enemy, they're literally shooting at you, or they're about to shoot at you, or there's a real risk they'll shoot at you, you don't want to risk it. You don't want to risk giving them an economic win. If they're not quite there, they're like Saudi Arabia, they're a country that's antithetical to yours, but they're not going to shoot at you. They're not literally an enemy right now of the United States. Then in that case, sure, trade with them and hope that ideas rub off on them and they become better, and therefore the world is a better place. And this is why it's really, really important to define what is an enemy. This is why I believe we should trade with Cuba. We should trade with Venezuela. Not because I have any sympathy for their regimes, and I personally would not trade with Cuba. But they're not an enemy, in a sense that they're not going to invade the United States. They're not killing Americans. And there is this potential, as Lyman says, that when you trade with them, the good ideas will rub off on them. But if somebody's literally trying to blow you up, Iran, for example, then you don't trade with somebody trying to blow you up and give them a win, give them resources, money, to blow you up even faster. Maybe the ideas will rub off. Maybe it'll take 3 decades for the ideas to rub off. The ideas haven't rubbed off yet on China, not completely, not anywhere close. So it can take a long time for the ideas to rub off. And some countries that are threatening you, you shouldn't give them that time. You know what I didn't do? I didn't thank all the sticker people, so let me thank them. Jose just did a $50 sticker. Thank you, Jose. Really, really, really appreciate that. That is fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, all right, let's see, what else? We have Troy, of course, the 500 Australian dollars. Really appreciate that, Troy. Thank you. Esoteric Economy, a couple of times, 3 times. Jonathan Honing, I know, did a few of these. Alan, thank you. And I'll thank the people who made a few statements in a minute. But let's see if I missed anybody. I got Jonathan again. Mary, thank you for the sticker. Greg, thank you. John, RDF. Yeah, thank you guys. Really appreciate the support. You have been great. All right, Not Your Average Algorithm, part 1. I understand this is a multi-generational battle. I don't much mind the wait time, but the fact that we're not even moving in the right direction is infuriating. 2 generations after Atlas Shrugged, we should be on the verge of privatizing Social Security instead of praying the Supreme Court overthrows tariffs. I don't know what standard you're using. I mean, it would be nice if we were on the verge of privatizing Social Security, but how do you come at 2 generations after Atlas Shrugged, we should be X? What's the algorithm? What's the way in which we're thinking about this? You know, how do ideas spread? How quickly do they spread? How quickly do they spread to whom? Whom is it important to have them spread? So I don't know. I mean, you have to have a theory. I have a theory. And that theory says, no, privatizing Social Security is going to take a long time. Much more than 2 generations. Doesn't come close. Ideas spread slowly. The advocacy for those ideas takes a long time to have an impact. It's a numbers game, and it's very difficult to get those numbers when you're so out of the mainstream. So you have to have a theory of how intellectual movements impact the world, and how that happens, how that moves, and over what time frame. And I don't think you have. I think you're just emoting in a sense, right? Not to be insulting, right? That's not my intent. But you're just saying, this is what I think. Based on what? I think this takes a very, very, very long time. You get Ayn Rand, then you get Elena Peikoff, then you get 3 or 4 other intellectuals who get Elena Peikoff, then you get 10, then you get 100, then you get 1,000. Now you're starting to talk about having an impact on the culture. I mean, on scale. 1,000 intellectuals. But that takes a long time. If you think about an intellectual's career, I mean, and that's many generations. There's Ayn Rand's generation, Lenin's generation, Harry's generation, Onkar's generation, and a new generation now. They're all separated by a couple of decades, almost a generation. And then we still got generations to go to get to 1,000. It takes time. A long time. Sadly. Neo. Rand said a shift to capitalism must be strategic, not sudden. But I suspect if it happens, socialists will still claim credit, since statists will be the ones guiding it. Well, statists won't be guiding it. I mean, or at least there'll be less statists than ever before. There'll be people that have a vision for what it should look like in the future. And if it's really a shift, if it's really going to happen over time, and it's not clear there will be statists. They could be, I mean, even objectivists achieving power are not going to shift capitalism suddenly. It's going to be strategically. So I guess I don't quite understand the question. And the status will be less status. There is such a thing as gradation of statism. Less statism is better than more statism. Shazbot is quoting Andor from Andor, the show on Disney. How do we win? We lose and lose and lose until we are ready. That's the rebel mentor to rebel recruits. Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely right. You're not going to win until you lose a lot. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of losses, and it seems desperate, but it is what it is. Greg Lewis says, YBS rights. YBS rights. I'm not sure what that is. All right, thank you. I think he just wrote something for it to count towards the 30. Mirko says, here we are. Thank you, Mirko. I'll see you on Saturday. Liam says, do you think Trump being a compulsive liar and repressor is causing his health to decay? Is it possible he doesn't make it out of his second term? And look, he's what, 78, 80? I don't know how old he is. 78, 79? Yeah, I mean, there's a good probability he doesn't make it out of this term. I mean, your life expectancy at this age is I mean, there's a real risk, lots of risks. And being a compulsive liar and a repressor doesn't help your health. It doesn't. So how bad is he going to, I don't know. But it doesn't, I think right now it's just conspiracy theories and nonsense. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump got ill. I wouldn't be surprised if he dropped dead. I wouldn't be surprised if he had developed dementia or developed anything. There's no, I mean, he's just at that age where these things happen. John, okay, stickers must not be being counted. I think early on it wasn't counting everything, but then it started counting everything. So I don't know. I'll complain. Clark, this doesn't feel like pre-Nazi Germany to you at all. I mean, it's got elements of it, but no, it doesn't. I mean, one of the reasons is that literally, I mean, what do you mean by pre-Nazi Germany? But there was opposition. There wasn't that much opposition once Hitler took power and once he started rolling. And I think there is opposition today. There's a vast number of Americans who oppose what is happening. But yeah, there's definitely a sense of we're heading towards greater and greater statism, more and more authoritarianism, and potential fascism. There's no question, and I keep saying that. I just don't think it's Nazism that what we're going to get. Don't expect the same thing to repeat. Daniel says, the U.S. conducted a lethal strike on a vessel leaving Venezuela. Yeah, I mean, they're building up to an excuse to do something in Venezuela militarily. There's no question. They'll say that the lethal strike is the vessel is carrying drugs, and that's the justification for the lethal strike. War on drugs is a war, and it's not a war of self-defense. And it's a pretty stupid war to be engaged in. But it's par for the course for Trump. Ryan, what is the best way to monitor the flow of investment and capital out of the U.S.? Is this easy to see amongst all the other economic data out there? Thanks. Yeah, I mean, you should be able to see that. I mean, suddenly, if it's going out of the U.S., you would see the dollar decline a lot more than it's declining. But the fact that it's declining suggests some of that. But you would also see net investment change. You would look at net foreign investment, how much money is leaving the United States versus how much money is flowing in. And a lot of money continues to flow into the United States. So there are a variety of different measures you can look, and it doesn't look like people are pulling money out of the U.S. Although people are generally more reluctant to hold dollars. The dollar is getting cheaper. Friend Harper says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Friend Harper. Thanks for the support. RDF says, count me, YouTube. Thank you, RDF. Ryan says, if ever the if ever the pleasure of one has to be bought by the pain of another, there better be no trade at all. Yes. A trade by which one gains and the other loses is a fraud. Well, it might not be a fraud because one party might be a masochist or a sacrificer, but, ultimately, lose-win trades turn into lose-lose. So beware. Do you really want to deal with the sacrificer? Do you really want to deal with the masochist? No. And you should walk away from trades like that. So in that sense, absolutely. Even if it's all upfront and everybody knows about it. Not healthy. Not good for you. Just like Mary Eileen. Yo, dude. Hey, Mary Eileen. Thank you, Mary Eileen. Esoteric dichotomy. A bit ago, you said young people don't need to focus on savings, but modest investing, index funds, early, compound safely, greatly. Why wait? Well, I didn't say you shouldn't. I said when you're young, you're not making a lot of money. You got to live. And it's better to live and to invest in yourself, invest in education, invest in having a decent place to live, invest in having a car, having a way to invest in a good computer, invest in those kind of things that make you more productive. And savings will come because if you invest in making yourself more productive when you're young, and still enjoy life, don't view life when you're young as a sacrifice for when I'm old, because no point in your life should be a sacrifice for something. But invest. So live well, live decently. You don't have to be lavish, and you don't have to be extravagant, and you don't have to be wasteful. But also don't feel like you have to pinch pennies when you're making a good living, and buy the things that are crucial for you to live well and to make it possible for you to become more productive in the future. So there's plenty of time when you're young to be investing, to be saving. And I get it that some people say you should start young because that develops a habit of saving. And there's something to be said for that. But I'm assuming that when you reach the point where saving is required and needed and you have enough money to save, then you'll do it. When you're young, you just don't have a lot of money to save. Now, look, if you're young and you're making $500,000 a year, yeah, save. There's no reason you should be spending $500,000 a year. But if you're young and you're making $100,000 a year, or $70,000 a year, or $60,000 a year, then it's just not enough to really be saving. If you believe that your income potential in the future is greater, invest in making sure that you can get to the point where you're making 100, 200, 300, 400,000 a year in your future. Michael says, this is completely different to what we were told as children. Yeah, most of what I say is completely different than what you were told as children. I'm focused on living, actual living, not on doing duty and not on sacrificing and not on suffering for some goal in the future. Living, and part of living is I have to live and I have to think about the future, but the main way when you're young to think about the future is invest in your skill set so that you can be rich in the future. That's the main thing you should be investing in. Building contacts, having the right equipment so you can do your job well, getting educated. And educated, I don't mean necessarily going to university, but educating yourself, figuring out right now, figuring out how to use AI, spending time on that. Doing things like that are much more important than putting money aside for a rainy day. Now, as you get older, as you enter your 30s and certainly as you enter your 40s, you better start saving and you better start making more money. But invest in your future rather than invest in the stock market. You have much more control over your future as well. That is my view of investing. Kim says, our intellectuals are only hope for the objectivist movement. I mean, I don't know what else there is. I mean, objectivism is a philosophical movement. How can you have a philosophical movement without intellectuals? It's a philosophy. Somebody has to be able to explain, teach, articulate, apply the philosophy. So it relies on intellectuals. Now, it maybe doesn't rely on intellectuals right now. Maybe you can say, okay, there are not going to be any objectivist intellectuals for the next 10 years, but then there'll be, at some point, there have to be intellectuals. Otherwise, objectivism cannot grow to a point of prominence in the culture. Intellectuals are what shape the world. Now, it can't only be intellectuals. So it's going to be great. It's going to be great to have businessmen who are successful, scientists that are successful, engineers that are successful, who say, I'm an objectivist, and my success, I owe much of my success to my objectivism. That will also help. And that'll give us a huge boost forward. But somebody has to articulate a philosophical case for all of this. And who can do that other than intellectuals? That's their profession, that's their job. Most people are too busy living to be able to be communicators of ideas. Communicators of ideas are, by definition, intellectuals. Raphael says, hey, Yaron, most debates are framed as capitalism versus socialism, where the takeaway is, let's avoid extremes and go for social democracy. Don't you think the focus should be against social democracy? Yes, absolutely. But the audience, you know, and usually, I have to say, usually when I debate people on socialism, it boils down to me debating against social democracy because they want to moderate their socialist position. They don't want it to be extreme. Sometimes I debate real socialists, like I will be debating a real socialist on November 13th in Colorado Springs. And you guys are all invited, by the way. But I think you need to debate both. It's more difficult to debate a social democracy guy. They're slipperier. They don't believe in anything. They don't stand for anything. But yeah, you need to debate both. And the social democracy is what I find I often land up debating when I debate a socialist. Because they don't want to actually own the means of production. They want more welfare. That's what Bernie Sanders wants. More welfare. Yeah, Chandler, you're invited. You can come. You can come. James Taylor says, notice how the right only cares about free speech when it defends racism. They're upset Europeans are being arrested for writing racist and tribalist comments. Not because they believe in any kind of absolute right to speech, but because they want more xenophobia and tribalist views expressed in the West. I mean, I think that's right, but it's still absolutely right that if you're going to defend free speech, you have to defend the right of racists to be racist. And the test is, are they going to defend the right of Muslims to advocate for Islam? And are they going to defend the right of communists to advocate for communism? And the right of socialists to advocate for socialism? We, as defenders, the true defenders of free speech, have to defend the right of all those groups to defend, to articulate their case. But I think you're right. The motivation of the European right is not free speech, qua free speech, quite enlightenment value of free speech. Their motivation is they want more racist speech. They don't want to be silenced themselves. Fenn Harper, thoughts and the emotion of fear. What does the word identify, causes? It identifies threats. So it identifies threats to you, to your life, ultimately to your values. Fear is a good emotion. It's an important emotion. It's really what you do with it. It's important to be afraid of things that threaten you because it's a signal. I I need to protect myself. I need to do something. I need to figure this out. It's not the emotion that's a problem. The emotion is important because it elevates to your awareness this risk that if it's based on facts. And the problem is when the fear overwhelms you and becomes the motivation for all your actions, and you lose the ability to be objective about the fear. You lose the capacity to actually engage with the facts. You're paralyzed by that fear. So it identifies threats to your values. It's caused by the existence of threats, by the reality of that threat. Ryan says, I think the less you're able to interpret reality using your own mind, the easier it is for someone to convince you times are terrible and things are bad. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the core problem is our educational system and the fact that people can't interpret things for themselves. They can't understand the world for themselves. They don't know how to do that. They don't have the skill set to do it. And that leaves them vulnerable to the modern intellectuals who are motivated to convince them that things are bad because then they're the solution. The world's going to end, but I can save it. Vote for me. Give me your money. By the way, we're only $72 short of, I think half an hour's passed, only $72 short of our 3-hour goal, $750. It would be great if we could achieve our 3-hour goal. We are going to enter our 3rd hour in 2 minutes. So yeah, stickers. We've done great today, so thank you. But if we can achieve the 750, that'd be even better. I mean, yesterday we achieved it. It would be great to do it 2 days in a row. But for that, we need $72. So if somebody wants to do a sticker or ask more questions, jump in. If Evil Tiki, does SCOTUS actually need to take any of these cases? Can't they pass and then the lower court ruling stands? Yes, that's absolutely right. They can. And maybe they will. I have a feeling, given the gravity, given the importance of these cases, given the pressure that Trump is going to put on them and on the judiciary more broadly, that they will take many of these cases, or at least the bigger ones, the tariffs, maybe this one about deploying troops into cities. Some of these bigger ones, I think they will take. But you're right, they don't have to. And given how full their docket is, maybe they won't take them all. Michael Kaufman, thank you for the sticker. Really appreciated. And I just saw one from Nate. Nate, thank you. Really appreciate the support. We're down to just $70 short of that magic $750. All right. Mary Lee says she wants a flying car. Me too. Mary says, okay, here it is. Thank you, Mary. Matt, if you were a young person dating in the modern era, how would you feel about being with a girl who posts racy pictures of herself on social media? I mean, it depends how racy they are, right? I mean, that partially. But I would ask myself, why is she doing that? What is her motivation? I would confront her about it and ask her that. I mean, I think young people today are obsessed with selfies. They're obsessed with taking pictures of themselves. I don't see anything negative about, sexy pictures, sexy photographs. Again, it depends on how racy they are. But what is the obsession of posting pictures on social media to begin with? Why are you posting these? I would just want to get more insight into the reasons, and there might be completely acceptable, reasonable reasons for doing it. So I wouldn't rule out such a girl, but I would want to know more about her motivation and her personality. Is this a narcissism? Is it a need to be is it some form of exhibitionism? Is it a need to be seen? I mean, what about women who just dress pretty racy on a day-to-day basis? Never mind social media, just walk in the street that way. I mean, is that bad? If a woman takes pride and joy in her sexiness, I think it's a positive. But it really depends on their motivation. What is motivating them? Is it I'm sexy and deal with it kind of attitude? And I like the fact that I'm sexy. I'm embracing the fact that I'm sexy, and this is part of who I am. This is cool. That's one attitude which I'm positively inclined towards, versus the attitude of, look at me, please look at me. I need attention. I need to be the center of your focus, which is a bad attitude. So it really depends. All right, let's see. I don't think it's necessarily narcissistic, in other words. All right, Jose, do you see intellectual movement in Puerto Rico? I don't. I mean, there's one free market think tank in Puerto Rico. It's kind of sad, but they've never really... I had lunch with the guy who runs it when he started early on, and I've offered to help, and I've offered to do stuff for them, and they've never contacted me. So, but I don't see any other intellectual really network developing in Puerto Rico. I wish there was. I'm there, happy to help and support such a network if it was happening. There's such a movement if it was happening, but I just don't see it. Now, granted, I don't speak Spanish, which is a big disadvantage in Puerto Rico. But all right, Ryan, any plans for the New Year's show? Yeah, I mean, it's September already. I know, no concrete ones. I'll start thinking about that when I get back home. And it would be nice to kind of line up maybe a series of interviews, like maybe have Alex come on and maybe have a bunch of other people come on the show during New Year's, just to do like 15, 20-minute short, like what's going on, what's happening, or why they support the Yaron Brook show or something like that. But generally, I think the goal this year will definitely be $20,000. I think that was the goal last year, so I'll have to go back and check. But yeah, it's going to be ambitious. We're going to go for big dollars, and it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be unbelievably long, and I'll try to get other people to participate so that make it more interesting. All right, last question from Peter. People trying to rationalize the actions of an orange non-entity reminds me of a medieval scholastics trying to make sense of a different non-entity. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of similarity. Faith is involved, mindlessness is involved, and a lot of rationalization is involved. All right, guys, you were great today. Thank you to everybody. We did great on the Super Chat. And we achieved YouTube's goal of 30 in an hour. That was amazing, so thank you for that. I'll have to bump it up to 50 next time to challenge you guys. So thank you to all the Super Chatters. Thank you again to Troy for the 500 Australian dollars. That was amazing. Thank you for you guys who did $50. I will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow the show will be a little later, probably an hour later. I don't think more than that. So 4 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And then I think we'll either be at 4 or 5 p.m. on Thursday and Friday. So have a great rest of your week. I am going to the Uffizi Gallery tomorrow, one of the great art galleries in the world. I'm going to go tomorrow, including in my ticket is access to the secret corridor that connects the Uffizi Gallery somewhere. I'll tell you tomorrow where it connects to, that the Medici could go for. I also want to show you some, tomorrow, if I can get myself organized, I want to show you some photos from the Basilica St. Croce, C-R-O-C-E, which is just amazing because it houses it's the burial site of so many geniuses that it's truly an amazing place. And then it has plaques to commemorate other geniuses, all affiliated in one way or another with Florence. I mean, and that's an interesting question to ask ourselves. Why, during a certain period of time in history, did so many high IQ, we'll use the IQ as a measure, geniuses, so many geniuses were born in one place during a short period of time? Why were so many? Why does that happen? And if IQ is just genes, how did that happen, just in a place like Florence? Maybe it's not just genes. Maybe there's something else going on. Anyway, we'll talk about that. I want to talk about Florence and the proliferation of geniuses in Florence, which is really, really interesting. See you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.